Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Nick Caracal, live here in New York. I will just make a very quick presentation about the difference between J1 visa and H1B visa. This is in response to the post I actually, uh, this is a response or a follow up Facebook Live in my response to my opinion about the J1 moratorium in the Philippines. Kasi ang maraming nag-message sa akin talking about or expressing their frustration and their disappointments. But then again, I would just like to remind everybody that the moratorium was issued with good intent. I don't speak on behalf of the EVP, but just like the uh, President Trump, he also had suspended some of the immigration visa holders to the United States with the intention of actually slowing down the impact of COVID 19. So, but the purpose of my presentation today is not basically to talk about the politics around J1 or H1B. After I posted my intention to do the Facebook Live this morning, I've actually seen or read some comments that, hey, there are rumors that President Trump will be suspending some of the H1B or the J1 visas or other non immigrant visas as well. The president can do anything he wants, right? So, as far as changing immigration law, that's the Congress has that authority, but as far as making suspending some benefits, of course, that's the within the discussion of the president. Just like to give you an example, way back in March 17, as the premium processing of H1B was suspended, but on May 29, it was again bringing back the premium processing, and I will be talking about that in a bit later. Premium processing means that, hey, if you are filing for an H1B, normal processing would be 6 to 8 months. But if you avail of premium processing, then the government promises itself to make a decision within 3 weeks, or in actual practice, you could actually see them deciding in between 1 to 2 months. Okay, so but then again, the purpose of this presentation today is basically to talk about the difference between J1 and H1B. So what that meant is, for those people who are losing hope or are actually expressing their disappointments about the suspension of the J1 visa program, then you could maybe start looking into other visa options if your goal is to come to the United States. And that is assuming that H1B is still available as an option for you, because as of now, those are still rumors that the H1B will be suspended. So again, without a proclamation order or executive order, then it still is a rumor, right? So we just move on and we're gonna present the differences between the J1 and the H1B. Okay? So sa mga nag-tune in, maraming salamat po. So again, as usual, if you have some questions, you can just write them down in the comment section so I could respond to them as we move on. Okay? Just a very quick disclaimer. This Facebook Live is only for presentation purposes and to give you opportunity for me to answer some questions. Don't take my question as a specific advice to you. If you would want to have a very specific conversation, and then you could actually send us an email and we'll talk about your specific case. Okay? Hi, Sir Armand. Sir Jemlu. Okay, unahan ko na kayo sa mga nagme-message sa akin na paki-accept yung aking friend request. Unfortunately, I could not accept friends anymore. Max out na po ako. So please follow me on Facebook. Yes, I have two accounts. The Nick Caracal at saka yung I Dream America. So ako din po yun. I will be able to read your messages in the two accounts. So then let's go to the first topic about the difference between the two. Okay. Just for my guidance here, I will just shift slides para mas klaro, no? As far as the purpose and eligibility is concerned, a J1 exchange visitor program is generally giving exchange opportunities in research, lecturing, cultural, and educational programs. So dito pumapasok ngayon yung karamihan sa atin, yung mga J1 teachers or actually people who are working in the hotel and restaurant industry. Yun yung mga common professionals that are actually going towards the J1 visa program. However, may mga kaunti-unti ding mga Pinoy who are also J1 visa holders in the research field, no? But the common professional professions that are actually availing of the J1 are those who are falling in the HRM program, and also for the teachers, because there's a lot of shortage of teachers in some states of the United States. No? So a J1 exchange visitor is not an employment visa. Okay, so pinost ko yan 2 days ago. So even if you are working in the United States, but you have to remind yourself that you are not in the United States on an employment visa or in a working visa. You are in the United States because you availed of an exchange program between the Philippines and the United States. And and you were informed from the beginning that, hey, because of the nature of the J1 visa, you are supposed to be going home to your home country. So dapat before you come to the United States, you have to accept the sad reality that, hey, again, depending on the type of the visa, the J1 visa program that you are enrolling in, that there is a big possibility that you have to go back to the Philippines and comply with the 2-year home residency requirement if you are subject to the 212E. We'll talk about that in the next slides. The H1B temporary professional worker visa, on the other hand, is offered to people who are considered specialty occupations, right? So, ito yung mga professions that requires at least a bachelor's degree, and they are and the job position offered to them requires a specific skills. So an example of that, I mean, at one point in time, nurses are eligible for H1B, but they put some more stricter regulations around that. So mga marketing researchers are falling into that one. ITs could also fall into the H1B, but again, there's a lot of restrictions. We can talk more about H1Bs, but that is not the intention of the presentation today. So ang purpose lang natin dito is just to show that H1B is a non-immigrant visa. Then it requires at least a bachelor's degree. So kung kunwari, may mag-i-inquire later na, hey, I have a 2 years, I have an associate degree, will I qualify as an H1B? No. It only pertains to people who have at least a bachelor's degree, and that the position offered requires at least a specific skill for them to use to be able to perform the job. Okay? Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Joshelle. Ano po sabi ni Trump with regards to the J1? Okay, so I'm not quite sure what you meant by that, but then again, I'm going to present the difference between the J1 and the H1B. Again, what I mentioned earlier was that there are rumors that the president is trying to suspend the J1, H1B, or other non-immigrant visas. But then again, those are still rumors without the proclamation order or executive order. It's still as a rumor. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Duration and timing. So for the J1 visa exchange visitor, generally it's up to 5 years. So some of our teachers who already have reached for the 5th year, either they go home, and as a matter of fact, there's a lot of professionals who went home for the previous years because they already maxed out, and there are no available waivers for them. And we'll talk about that waivers in a bit. So generally speaking, a J1 can only stay in the United States maximum of 5 years. So then again, it depends on some of the J1 program that you are in. So for some people who are on the hotel and restaurant industry, people could come here only for 1 year or less than a year because they are only enrolled in the summer interns or internship program or summer program. So again, it depends. But the purpose of this presentation basically is geared towards our teachers, so they will be able to actually find opportunities or other options that they could explore as far as pursuing their American dreams. Okay, so in terms of hiring for the J1, again, it depends on the hiring seasons. No? So teachers generally start their hiring process before, I mean, 2 to 3 months before the start of the enrollment season, in the same manner that people who are working on the hotel and restaurant industry are actually trying to hire people before the season starts, right? Because again, those needs are intended for specific seasonality. It depends. Again, it depends on the industry. The H1B, on the other hand, is given up to 6 years maximum, but They are normally given initial 3 years. Then after that, it depends on the employer's strategy whether they are going to apply for a 1 year extension or 2 years extension. But the maximum legal duration for H1B is up to 6 years. So majority of the H1B holders, if their employers are impressed with their performance, would normally start their immigrant process, meaning that they will start their green card application at least on the fourth, fifth month. People are actually asking that, hey, if an employer is if the employer has the the strategy of actually offering the person H1B or a green card, why would you go towards the H1B first? Well, that could be a matter of strategy for employers too, because one of the fears of a U.S. employer is that once the applicant obtains their green card, the tendency is people to leave them. So we put safeguards on the employers that we represent. Either we put into a contract or undertaking saying that, hey, if you would leave the company 2 years from the time you obtain your green card, then you might be asked to refund $20,000, right? So because of the costs of the immigration process. On the other hand, but again, you have to understand the intention of the employer. They want you to stay with them a longer. So if they could hold you an H1B up to 6 years and then try to file a green card application for you for another 1 year or 2 years, then it actually gives them more assurance that you will be staying with them longer. You know? So yun yung nagiging strategy ng mga employers as far as people offering them H1B first, and then they will file the green card application later. So there are two types of H1B. Ang tinatawag natin na H1B normal, there are only about 65,000 visa numbers available for H1B. And may naririnig ka na o cap exempt or non-cap exempt, correct? So yung mga non-cap exempt, because there's only limited number of visa numbers available. So again, there are 65,000 visa numbers available for H1B. So niraraffle yon kasi sa sobrang dami ng applications, hindi na kaya ng US government to logically select which case goes through or not. Ninararaffle yon between March or April, and then those who are selected will go through the next steps. Those who are not selected, unfortunately, have to wait another year to apply for the H1B application. However, for organizations which are CAP exempt, example of these are schools, mga secondary schools who have affiliations with a higher education. There are requirements to be CAP exempt. Kung mayroon silang agreement that, hey, some of your student teachers will be able to teach in our school, or any other agreements that the higher university and the lower level institution could have, then they may be able to qualify for H1B cap exempt. So, mga taong gustong magtrabaho sa United States, because again, the J1 program has been suspended for 1 year, you could look for opportunity or employers who are H1B cap exempt. So, pag-usapan natin yan sa last slide ko. I only have 8 slides. Kasi ang daming nagme-message sa amin, how po, no? So, sarap sagutin na PM sent, no? Pero kidding aside, let's use the internet now. Let's be resourceful. You could actually search the internet on looking for H1B cap exempt employers, no? So para mabigyan din kayo ng opinion or idea how to look for them. Kasi mahirap maghanap ng mga H1B sponsors, okay? But basically, as far as duration and timing is concerned, medyo flexible ka pag J1 program ka, or if you happen to have an H1B cap exempt employer, no? Pero pag cap exempt ka, ibig sabihin, private companies are normally not cap exempt. So, they normally will file H1B applications. Pasok sila sa raffling between March and April. And even if you will be selected in that group, your start date will be October of the following year. Okay? I mean, October of the same year na ma-approve yung H1B. Unique features, intent. Pag-usapan natin to kasi yung J1 program, again, ang sinabi ko kanina, once you sign up for a J1 program, you have to accept the reality that there is a big likelihood that you will go home to your home country and stay there for 2 years, because you can only stay here maximum of 5 years. So lucky for those people who are in the United States on their 5th year, because of COVID, the US government has given a one-time extension and thereby giving them another year. So sa case nila, nagiging 6 years yung kanilang J1 visa, but only because of COVID. But generally speaking, it only should be for 5 years, and you have to return to your home country to comply with the 2 years residence program. So if you obtain your J1 in the Philippines, then you have to stay in the Philippines for 2 years before you could avail of any other visa options in the United States. So it doesn't mean na, hey, if you've obtained your J1 visa program in the Philippines, then once umuwi ka, magtrabaho ka muna sa Canada or Australia, that doesn't work. You have to comply with the 2 years going back to your home country of residence. Um, but again, there are waivers available. The most common one is obtaining a no objection statement from the Philippine government. If either you have been married to a U.S. citizen or you have a U.S. citizen child. But again, there are other bases for the waivers, but the most commonly one used are the ones I've mentioned. The J1 waiver also does not require a labor condition application because then again, the J1 program is a program between the two governments, the Philippines and the US, to enter into an exchange, a cultural exchange, or kung anumang program na pag-usapan nila. So they do not require a labor certification because a J1 is not an employment-based visa. H1B on the other hand is may tinatawag na yung dual intent. So uh, I will just talk about dual intent in the beginning. Now, dual intent means if you are in the United States or coming to the United States on a J1 visa, nagtrabaho ka dito, sobrang na-impress yung employer sa'yo, if-file ka niya agad ng green card application because they don't want you to go home. There is a very big chance that your green card application may be denied if at the time of the interview, nagkamali ka ng sagot kasi from the beginning, you really wanted to stay in the United States. So as a J1 visa holder, you have to go home, but you have to be very, very careful when you obtain a waiver, you apply for a green card application because hindi ka dapat mag-apply ng green card agad if you are a J1 visa holder, right? Then there is a criticality at that point in time. On the other hand, if you are an H1B visa holder, even on your first month or second month, and the employer is impressed with your performance, and they decide to file your green card application for you, they can do that. Wala kang problema pagdating sa interview. At even if tinanong ka ng officer na, hey, when you had the H1B, do you have the intention of applying for a green card? And you answered yes, walang problema yan. Because that's what we call the dual intent. It's okay to have the intention of applying a green card, even if you are a H1B holder, or even if you would express your intention that, hey, I would want to apply for a green card, even while I'm still on an H1B. So, walang problema yan. No? But you cannot do that on a J1. So, kung kunwari H1B holder ka, and then your employer will file a green card application for you, you don't have to go home to your home country to be able to get your green card. So, yun yung kaibahan ng J1 at saka H1. No? The only difference between a J1 and the H1B is kailangan i-prove ng employer na mayroong, this is what we call the labor condition application. This is to convince the U.S. government that there is no U.S. citizen or green card holder available and willing to do the job that they are offering to an H1B applicant, no, or a H1B visa holder. So mas mataas ang proseso ng pagkuha ng green card holder pag H1B ka compared to a J1 who have obtained a waiver. Kasi nga, kailangan mo mag-apply ng LCA or the Labor Condition Application to prove that there is no U.S. citizen or green card holder available to do the job. Okay? Next, transfers. Yung J1 visa holder, again, they may stay in the United States up to 5 years. So, minsan, may mga reklamo sila sa current employers nila or another employer is actually giving them more benefits and they would express their intention to apply for another J1 visa. So the rules will allow them to transfer from another J1 sponsoring agency to another. The only guidance that I would say is before you make that decision, I would recommend that you consult a lawyer because you might be subject to another 2-year home residency requirement. because yung 2-year home residency requirement na yon, or yung requirement na dapat uuwi ka is tied up to the program that you're enrolling in. So if you're enrolled into two more programs given by two different J1 agencies, then you might be subject to two different 2-year home residency requirement. Okay. Hello, Attorney Angela Trinidad. Good morning, ma'am. Thanks for joining in. H1B, on the other hand, the H1B is employer specific. So meaning, if one employer is filing an H1B for you, then pagdating mo sa US, mayroong second employer who would want to hire you. Can you work for them? No, because again, H1B is employer specific. If the second employer wants to file a petition for you, then they have to file another H1B. The good thing is there is no restriction for you to work for two employers. Okay? Then after that, kailangan lang mag-file yung second employer ng another petition. So, marami na nagme-message dito. So, I will just answer some questions here. Okay? Ma'am Sue, sir, what nakapila na kami ng J1 Teacher Exchange Program? Is there a chance ma-change yung application namin prior to embassy interview to H1B? Okay. So, yeah, so if you already have a J1, chance ma-change yung application to H1B. Ma'am, depende ma'am kung yung employer mo is also an H1B employer, no? So, if they are, I hope that they are H1B Cup exempt. So, ibig sabihin nga, hindi sila yung normal na iraraffle tuwing March and April, then they may be able to file an H1B for you. So, the good news is there's a good number of schools in the United States which are H1B Cup exempt. So, if they would decide that, hey, I will change my offer to you, instead of offering you a J1, I would offer you instead an H1B. Yes, they can do that. And if they are H1B Cup exempt employer, they may be able to process your H1B the soonest time possible. From Flor de Luna. Okay, so I will avoid answering questions that are not related to the topic, okay? Okay, hi Porch. I was able to work in Jakarta, Indonesia when I went home after my employer. So, ma'am, paki-klaro, can you just clarify your question? So I think what you're saying is, will I be, will you be able to actually comply with your, so okay. Ma'am, pakisend na lang ulit, ma'am. It's not so clear for me anong tanong mo. Okay, so next topic, dependence on work permits. So, yung J1 visa program, if you have a spouse or children who are below 21 years old, yes, they can go with you to the United States. And they may, once they are here, they could go into attend schools or kung anong mga activities nila. Will they be allowed to work? Yes. Your spouse or children under 21 may be able to work for as long as they will be able to apply for a work permit. Okay? And then, change ko lang. Work permit. And just be careful when you apply for a work permit for a J2. No? So yung spouses mo or yung minor children mo, while they can apply for a work permit, just be careful with the reasoning na ilalagay mo doon, because their income cannot be used to augment or to complement or to support the J1. By the rules, the J1 is supposed to be, the J1 visa holder, the primary holder of the J1 visa is supposed to be supporting the J2s. So, supporting the spouse or supporting the minor children. Now, if your spouse and your children happen to apply for a work permit, they could not actually use as a reason na, hey, I want to work because I would want to support or to help my J1 visa holder. You cannot do that. That would be against the rules. On the H1B, on the other hand, ang mga minors din ang tawag doon is H4. So ito yung mga spouses and minor children of the primary H1B visa holder. They are generally not allowed to work. So yun yung problema pag dadalhin mo yung spouse mo at saka minor children at saka ikaw lang yung primary earner, because they are not allowed to work. But there is an exception to that. You will be able to file for a work permit for your spouse and for your children, provided that a labor certification has already been started for them or the I-140. So, ibig sabihin nun, they can only apply for a work permit pag you could show that the employer ng H1B primary beneficiary meron nang na-file na green card or I-140, yun yung first step mo to apply for a green card, or meron ng labor certification na na-start sa kanya. So, again, that might sound too legalistic or too technical, but what we're trying to say is pag na-start na yung green card application niya, then pwede na silang, yung mga dependents nila pwede nang i-apply ng work permit. Okay, so I have questions here. Do you have update about the CFO moratorium? I actually sent an email for them to them, but I haven't received a response. But I guess because walang tao sa office. But I've read some developments na the CFO or the Philippine government has instructed agencies helping the J1 to actually stop processing the paperwork, and that they also have informed the US Embassy to stop processing J1 visas. From Loy. Freeze po ba teacher hiring? Possible H1B. To answer the question daw, hindi nag-freeze yung hiring. Yung J1 lang ang sinuspend. Now, there is no executive order yet suspending H1B. That's the reason why I was having this presentation to show that if you are no longer pursuing the J1 program, then try to look for an H1B employer who could actually file the H1B petition for you instead of the J1. No? Kasi yung H1B pa naman, hindi pa naman kakancel. Sir, what do you mean na po cancel na appointment till July 3? Okay. So, ang sinasabi natin na canceled na yung July 3, these are actually the in-person appointments. So, the in-person appointments we cover the J1 applicants na mag-i-interview sa embassy. So, the US Embassy in Manila has issued an advisory that, hey, all in-person appointments, and that includes non-immigrant visas, and immigrant visas, which I presume also includes the J1 applicants, na canceled muna until July 3. The reason of that is hindi dahil na suspend ang J1 program, but because of the COVID-19, no? Because of the restriction in Manila has been extended to July 3, so is the US Embassy suspending or canceling all in-person appointments. So please watch the news from or visit the website of the US Embassy Manila to get updates as far as the cancellation of your interviews are concerned. So you will normally receive an email from them anyway kung naka-cancel yung visa niya. Ma'am Catherine Miranda, can J1 applicants become applicants of H1B po? Yes po. Pag ang employer nyo is willing to actually change your application from J1 to H1B. From Crisostomo, sir, clarify ko lang. Right after 5 years as a J1, can we reapply for H1B? Sir, it depends, no? So kung ang J1 mo is not subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, yes, your employer could actually start filing your H1B application. I think on your 4th year, pwede mo nang i-start yun para hindi ka mawala ng visa. But if you are subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, then you need a waiver. That will be the next slide to talk about the waiver. But to answer your question, yes. Hi, Porch. I still was able to work outside USA and outside Philippines, but when I compare that to your rule, after my 5th year, pwede po ba mag-outside work? Okay, so ma'am, kalarin ko lang to ha. If you obtain your J1 visa in the Philippines, then you have to comply the 2-year home residency requirements in the Philippines. Pero let's say you work in Indonesia for 2 years. Doon mo na obtain yung J1 visa mo in Indonesia. Then after your 5th years, babalik ka ba sa Indonesia or can you comply the 2-year home residency requirement in the Philippines? Then in that case, you have 2 options. You could either comply the 2-year home requirements in the Philippines or outside the Philippines, not necessarily in Jakarta, right? So yun yung the difference doon. So to make the rules strict lang, pero para mo sinabi na if you obtain your J1 visa in the Philippines, then you have no choice but comply with your 2-year home residency requirement in the Philippines. Pero pag hindi mo nakuha ang J1 mo in the Philippines, then you could comply the 2-year home residency requirement outside the Philippines and outside the United States. So pwede ka magtrabaho sa Canada or sa Australia, basta, or pwede rin sa Philippines. No? So yun lang, it gives you more flexibility as far as where you are going to comply with the 2-year home residency requirement. Our raise. So sorry if I mispronounced your name. Paano po kung 20-year-old na yung anak ko, sir, then eventually nag-turn 21 na siya doon sa US, pagdating niya 22, pauwiin ba siya? Um, Ma'am, for the J1, so yung J2 mo, pag nag-21 na siya, you will be advised by your J1 sponsoring agency that, hey, you have to find a way to change status or papauwiin mo yung anak mo kasi by pag birthday na niya, matatanggalan siya ng J1 visa. So, you have the option of applying for a change of status. So, most people or applicants within the same scenario mo, ang ginagawa nila, pinapa-apply nila yung anak nila to a student visa. So, USAS is more lenient in granting those change of visa, non-immigrant visa from J2 to F1, the student visa, because of the reason na nag-21 na sila and their family is still in the United States because they still have X number of years to finish the J1 contract. So try to do that, and if you need more guidance, you could send us a message um, para mas alam mo yung strategy mo. From Gina Sicares, may processing ba J2 ngayon o kasama sila sa moratorium ngayon na walang J1? I think my understanding is, and again, I sent an email to the EVP, CFO. Wala pa akong natanggap, maybe because they are close. But if you analyze closely, J2s are dependents of a J1. So if the J1 are placed into a restriction that there will no longer, there will processing of the visas will be suspended. So I think the J2s will be affected by that. Hi, Sir Joseph Villegas. Pwede po ba maging H1 ang mag-asawa pareho kaming J1? Ako ay J2. Yes, sir. So, again, I'm assuming that you already have dalawang options lang yun. So, if you have a waiver, dahil because nagkaanak kayo ng US citizen, or because hindi kayo subject to the 2-year home residency requirements, because it could happen, then the two of you may be able to apply for H1B na magka-separate para at least kung approve yung H1B nyo, you could work together, no? Na hindi kayo dependent sa isa't isa. So, yes, you could apply for separate H1Bs. Market, no, I cannot answer specific school or district. You can search the net if they are still hiring. For Maria Jovita, I've been out of the US for 2 years now after my J1. However, I only spent 6 months home country and then the rest is spent in another country. Right now, I'm again in the process of getting a J1 visa to teach in the US. I'm processing it abroad, not in PH. Will this be a problem? So again, ma'am, I don't know where you obtain your J1 visa. If you obtain it in the Philippines, then you have to comply the 2 years home residency requirement in the Philippines. They will be very strict on that one. So just make sure that you comply with that. From Rivy, I am a J1 visa holder and there's a company who wants to sponsor me. What are the things for me to do? So, sir, it depends on so many things, right? So, do you have a waiver? Are you subject to the 2-year home residency requirement? What type of visa are they offering you to you? So, sir, if you would want to have a conversation, you can send us a message so we could talk about your case. Is there a chance ma-amend ang resolution ng EVP? I don't know, right? So, I think we are hoping that they would change their policies, but again, it's their discretion to make. We can only hope and pray that they would. But then again, you would understand the intention of why the issue that moratorium in the first place. It's for COVID and it's for the safety of everyone else. From Joseph Magsino, what's the way in order for us to know existing HVAC schools? Okay, good question, sir. The first thing that you need to know is to contact your HR, or you can ask your superintendent to say, hey, are we H1B cap exempt? If they don't know that, malamang hindi kayo cap exempt. But if they are, then you're lucky because they will be able to file an H1B for you. Number two, is it appropriate to ask our existing school if they can offer us H1B? In this particular case, sir, the best person to ask is your direct training institution. So it could be the HR in your district or your superintendent. No need to contact your J1 to ask whether or not they are H1B because hindi naman sila yung employer mo to be. So ask that question to your potential employer, which happens to be your school district. Okay. Ma'am, so you have, Ma'am Ports, you have to comply to your home residence requirement in the Philippines. From RJ Gigato, good morning. H1B holder, is it possible to move from one state to another state? Same offer of visa H1B. Ma'am, they have to modify your H1B application. So to answer your question, yes, it's possible, but they have to apply for modification of your H1B because again, it is employer specific, but they also mentioned in your application the place of location where you're gonna be working. So if you will be transferred to another location, they have to make an amendment to your application. But yes, you can work in another state. From Joshua, assuming that the school can grant H1B visa po and they're willing to sponsor, di ba may lottery po? So again sir, ito yung tinatawag natin, you have to ask your school whether they are cap exempt or non-cap exempt. If they are cap exempt, then hindi mo na kailangang maghintay ng March of April for the lottery. Yung ang nila-lottery lang, ito yung mga non-cap exempt H1Bs. No? So mostly from private companies. Ma'am, normally H1B cap exam can be processed in 1 to 2 months after they obtain the LCA, the labor condition application. And there is also a way to premium process an H1B, which the government processes to make a decision between 3 business weeks and then normal practice 1 to 2 months. Celones, I have 3 children that are US citizens and all of them are minors 16, 14, 12. Is it possible waiver? Sir, sana nag-apply ka before nag-suspend ang EBP, no? Because in your situation, you could have availed or was granted a no objection statement. My comment si Ma'am, si Attorney Angela Trinidad to Joseph Maxino, you also have to clarify from Paul WC whether the school has applied for accreditation or the staffing issue for that matter. There are 2 procedures you have to consider, one in the US and in the other in the Philippines. Yeah. So just clarification lang. When I was answering questions around, hey, your employer should be able to file an H1B for you, my presumption is that, of course, they have to comply with the requirement from the Philippines that, hey, the hiring institution should have get has been registered and has complied with the requirements of Polo. In this regard, si Attorney Trinidad ang the best person to comply. Of course, the employer has to comply the requirements from the Philippine government for them to be able to pursue the processing of your H1B. So, ma'am, thank you for clarifying that or for tuning in. Hi, Sir Nico. Hi, Sir Doming Balaga, classmate ko sa high school. Boss, musta? Um, Pasensya lang ha. I have 2 slides left but I just want to make sure that I answer the questions here. Moving on, naklaro na natin yung mga dependents, no? So, ito yung last slide ko pala. Sa mga nagtatanong, no? Na after I actually posted that, hey, if you are no longer, if J1 for now is not an option for you, then you could actually explore the H1B. And then, ang daming nagme-message, ang daming nagko-comment how po or paano or anong requirements. The best thing for you is, again, be resourceful, use the internet. So, I actually posted here some, change ko lang slide ko dito. Right? So if you actually go into the net and say and type H1B sponsoring agencies, you will be able to actually see some of the good sites that actually give you a list of employers offering H1B. So one of the links there would actually give you the option of putting in your job title. So if you're a teacher, you just write it there. If you would want to put in your state, you could also type it there and it will give you the list of H1B sponsoring institutions or companies. The same manner with the J1 sponsoring agencies, pag tinype mo, may makikita ka pa rin mga lists of companies who are legitimate employers. So I'm already finished with my presentation. I hope I was able to give light on the difference between a J1 and an H1B. Kung may mga tanong pa kayo, you can write them down on the comment section. I will try to respond to them as soon as I have the time to respond to them. Or if you would want to have a detailed conversation about your case, please send a message. No? So sa mga taong nagre-request sa akin na paki-accept yung friend request nila, again, I could not accept friends anymore. You can just follow us on my two accounts, Nick Caracal or I Dream America, for you to be able to see US immigration updates. For the teachers, I've created two groups, the Filipino teachers in America. So it's actually a group and a page. So if you would want, again, to have to exchange concerns and experiences with your fellow teachers, you can join that group, and then at the same time, you could get updates from me. May mga pahabol na questions dito. Pa-explain po ng extreme hardship. So, for the J1 visa subject for the 212E, one of the options of getting a waiver is to argue that if you will be forced to go home to the home country of residence for 2 years and you are married to a US citizen or a green card holder, they will experience exceptional hardship. So many factors ang gagamitin doon. So may mga family ties, economic ties, security and concerns. So ito lang yung mga one of the factors that you could actually use. But sir, if you really would want to have a more detailed conversation about waivers and whether or not it applies to you in the first place, I would recommend that you consult a lawyer because mahaba sa conversation, right? In cases that we spend minimum 1 hour just to talk about waivers and how to go over them and ano yung mga factors that we could use to have a stronger argument to win a waiver. Okay? Alexandria Camille, great to see you here doing job. Okay. Hi, Ma'am Willie. Thank you po. Good morning. Ingat. So Alexandria, J1 partition subject to the two-year rule while some are not. Okay, so good question and observation, Alexandria. No? So generally speaking, if your profession is listed in the professionals lists under a J1 program, then that person or persons should have been subject to the two-year home residency requirement. Now, because of human factors, minsan nagkakamali ang printing ng visa stamp, nakalagay doon not exempt. Minsan, ang nakalagay sa DS 2019, not cap exempt, pero yung visa mo, cap exempt. So, there could be a variety of combinations, right? As a rule, kung kunwari, nakalagay sa visa stamp mo, not subject to, and then an employer files an H1B for you, the rule requires the officer deciding on your next application, in this case, the H1B, to verify whether or not you are subject to the home residency requirement. Yun yung rules. But the reality is, may nakakalusot talaga at maraming nakakalusot na dahil maybe the officer who are actually deciding on their case just rely on the visa stamp that they are actually that's in front of them and they actually decide the case because according to the visa stamp they are not cap exempt and they are not subject to the 2-year home residency requirement. So the only risk that you're taking is it could be possible na makalusot ka from J1 to H1, then pag-apply mo ng green card, yung officer na nag-handle doon strict, and then they could still inquire whether or not you need a waiver at that point. So, but to answer your question, ma'am, maraming factors bakit may mga nakakalusot, bakit yung iba not subject to the 2-year home residency requirement. But then again, for people who are lucky, nakakalusot sila, they've been able to obtain the green card na hindi tinatanong bakit not subject to sila. But there are cases, and we've heard some of them na nakakuha ng or somehow receive or get hurdles when they apply for the green card because doon sa mistake na yun. Ang recommendation ko for some to actually have the advisory opinion whether or not the visa stamp is correct. So pag kunwari nag-file ka ng advisory opinion and then the opinion goes back to you and say yeah, you are not subject to, then you can rely on that opinion and then you should not have a problem going forward. So yun lang yung masasagot ko sa tanong na yun. From Jemlu, yung married po sa same sex, is it possible to get a waiver? For exception, for no objection statement, yes. We have a lot of cases with that. From Chide, makakatulong po ba yung manak dito para di na po makauwi sa Philippines? Having a US citizen child is a ground to have a waiver. But then again, unfortunately, there is a moratorium on NOS, no objection statement processing sa ngayon. So if kung kunwari, you are still in your second year, so you have time. No? So you could just wait for the EVP to give the suspension. Then after that, you can apply for the no objection statement. It's very fast anyway, right? So you could get a waiver 1 to 2 months from filing your application. Okay, so tapos na po yung aking slides. And again, if you would want to get more updates on US immigration, you could either follow me on my 2 Facebook accounts, or you could actually join some Facebook pages and groups, or you can also follow me on my YouTube. So maraming salamat po. Hindi ko na basa lahat ng slides. So thank you very much for tuning in. Maraming salamat.